Ever wondered when you walk into some homes that they just have this luxury feel? Well, today we're going to talk about great tips on how to create that in your own home. One of the biggest things that we really swear by is having neutral color palettes where everything coordinates. So what we mean by how everything should coordinate is that everything should have a very similar color scheme. For us, we really like neutral colors, mainly because they're so soothing to the eye. What we also like to really do and achieve is every room should have a flow to it. So when the colors are all aligned, it makes that space feel so luxurious, so large, so much more spacious than it already was. Here's a picture of our client's entrance hall that we tried to put these factors in. And if you notice, it's the colors of the flooring that matches the furniture. It's the colors of the accessories, which are adding that little bit of warmth. Hints of gold and metals that just give it that luxury feel. Everything is very subtle, but what it does is it makes the space feel so much bigger. So what we really try to do in this project is make sure that the wallpaper coordinates with the flooring. The flooring connects with the wooden on the staircase. The wooden flooring, which is on the landing, is also coordinating. This just makes the space feel so much more luxurious. In this hallway, what we tried to do is we made the head wallpaper have a beautiful textured wallpaper, which was very subtle. Wall paint that we put on the rest of the walls to save cost was matching towards it. This is how we keep on going about how everything coordinates. This then also ties in greatly with the flooring, where it's neutral, but then also has that luxury feel of light colors and the size of the tile. So it really brings in that wow factor when you walk in. If you see pictures of the house before, what they had done was they had created a lot of storage inside in the entrance to put away their coats. But we cleverly concealed everything by widening the staircase and putting the storage underneath. And that meant there was nothing to show when you walked into the house, no shoes on the floor, you name it. So we put it in the furniture where the sideboard was the shoe cupboard. And then we added accessories on top to kind of not make it feel like a storage space, but more like a feature when you walk into the room. One other great way to make a home feel luxurious is lighting. For us, impact lighting is very important. So one large light in the center of the room is great, but if you can also add more layers, that is something that we would heavily recommend. So not necessarily just the large light in the center of the room, but what's going around it. So we like to put a boxed recessed light in, if you can, put it in the bookcases where they have integrated lighting. When you open up your wardrobes, you have lighting in there. Wall lights, so then there's different heights of where your light goes, from a table lamp to a floor light to a wall light. For us, mood lighting is really important. Sometimes you just want to have a lamp on and then maybe the LED strip in the corner to create that ambience when you walk into a space. Nobody wants to spend crazy amounts on their lighting bills every month. So these are great ways to feel good when you walk into a room or when you enter a space and to get that luxury feel. So one thing that we really loved in this home was the fact that we could really play with lighting. So if you look when we reached the upstairs landing, you could see the recessed box that we created so that the actual chandelier became a true feature. It actually looks like an art piece when you see it all in full glory. Whereas before that box was created, it may have looked a bit flat. And because there's so much height, the double ceiling height in this room, it really creates that impact that from floor to ceiling, there's something going on, but subtly. One thing we really also loved was that we were able to create a bookcase on their landing. We could have left it simple with no lighting inside, but that lighting is what changed that space completely. It really lifted it up and it made it an area where you actually want to sit in, opposed to before when it was just a blank canvas and the client had just put wardrobes and a sofa. To me, I feel like that's a total waste of space, and this is a great way on how to use it as a display area, as a storage area, and also adding that lighting to the room. One other great way to make a home feel luxurious is accessories. What we like to do is make sure that the scale of the accessories are correct, because when the scale is wrong, let's say for instance a photo frame is too small, it actually gets eaten up in that space. So what we always like to do is make sure it's in tune with the size of the furniture that's beneath it. So for instance, in this project we have done, we had this dressing area slash desk area slash TV wall, media wall, and we wanted to make it look artistic, yet whilst the TV unit was simple. And so we used all these beautiful shapes, which were all coordinated in color, in style, you name it, so that they really made that wall pop. So accessories should be all about balance, it should be about texture, it should be about style, and also coordinating with one another. To make it more personalized, we would add photo frames, but sometimes you don't want it to be color. So one thing we always like to do is make it black and white. That way it never gets boring. You always love looking at it, and it also blends in really well with the rest of the room. Accessories also make a room feel a lot more personalized. For us, when we've just put the furniture in and there's no accessories, it actually feels like a showroom. You want to add all these accessories to give that luxury feel and that personal touch that when someone walks in, they know it's your home. Our personal way of making any room feel luxurious is having that whispering wow factor. And what we mean by that is every piece that you have in your room just has that subtle effect, that beauty in itself, but it doesn't command attention solely on that one piece. So let's say, for instance, in this project, this room was huge, so we had to get an even huger sofa that fits into that space without it overtaking everywhere. What we tried to really focus on was the shape of the arms, making sure the color of the legs all coordinate with the colors of the sides of the tables. The coffee table in the center was huge, but because it was glass, it didn't feel like it impacted the room to the point where your eyes were only driven to the coffee table. We also made sure that the rug size was perfect in space with the sofa, so that way it felt really cozy and enclosed, but then also the room at the same time felt very luxurious and large. What we also wanted to do is add textured wallpaper, but keep it really subtle. And this is where we keep on bringing the whispering wow factor. It's something that you can keep on looking at and never get tired of, even in 20 years. Like, that is our ultimate goal. Why would you want to spend so much money on something that you would ultimately want to change within 5 years? You want to look at it every day and think, wow, I love this room, but each piece speaks to me individually, not one piece speaks to me and I'm already fed up with it after a few years. So really focus on making sure your pieces have that wow factor, but very subtle. And that way you'll never get tired of it. And so if you notice in this room, there's plenty of layering, whether it's the carpet or the rug on the flooring on top of the wooden flooring, if it's the cushions which had the piping alongside it. It even has textures on the cushions to make that room have more depth. And what is great about cushions is you just have to change the cushion cover if you get fed up with it. And it's a minimal cost in comparison to changing a sofa, which could, for instance, be a color that you may get fed up of. Whereas at least here, because it's neutral, you never would. So having those bespoke cushions which have that different colored piping adds all the color you actually need in a room, and that's where we say it's that whispering wow, because your eye is drawn to it, but it's not stuck there, and it allows you to look at the whole room rather than just one piece. So making sure that your home feels luxurious, you have to make sure you have the right size furniture. I can't tell you the amount of times we've walked into a home where it will be a huge room, but everything is just not placed in the right place, or it's just too big or too small for that wall. And that's what we say, sometimes it gets eaten up by that wall. So when we talk about right size furniture, here's an example that we did for a daughter's bedroom where she needed a dressing table. And although this room is large, we didn't know where to place it initially. What was great was when we do our 3D drawings, we can see if we can shift the bed a little to the right-hand side, we could add in a floating desk for her, which can work as a dressing table or a desk. And because it's floating, there's no legs underneath, allowing that space to still feel spacious and not feel too tight. We made sure that the furniture had storage in it. That way, not only was it great for storage, we also made a display section for her to be able to show off her plants, her accessories, you name it, but then also conceal all the mess that she wanted to hide. That way, if she wanted to work, she could always work in a calm environment. And this is all down to making sure your furniture is the right size, because if it is too big or too small in that space, you end up putting stuff, stacking all your books on top, making a total mess, and it actually becomes a space you don't want to work in or do your makeup in. So it's very important to make sure that your furniture is coordinating to the size of the room. So for instance, if you look at this TV wall, there was 2 doors that are on either side of the TV. And what we always try and do is we want to bring a bit more impact to that wall. It's still a big room, so we added a floating table there. That way she could put her games consoles, your skybox, whatever you need to put inside so it's concealed. It just means that space becomes more of a feature wall instead of just a TV. A lot of people also put the TV too high. We always like to say keep it eye level. So for us as interior designers, spatial planning is what makes a room feel luxurious. If your spatial planning is off, it doesn't matter how great your furniture is, the space just doesn't come together. So spatial planning is so important. And what we like to use is our CAD software as professionals, because it allows us to draw out the whole room, make sure we put all the right size furniture in, and then edit it to see, tweak it to see what works best and what furniture goes best where. And then we show it to our clients and they say, actually, I think I need more seating, or maybe we reduce the seating. All of that can be done in this 2D plan, allowing us to then build up from there to be able to create spatial planning for their their dreams. So here's an example where we had this huge lounge that our clients wanted to make sure that they could do plenty entertainment in. They wanted to be able to have people still feel like the room is spacious, but not feel cluttered with furniture, and also be able to watch a big game or a match or a concert on the big screen. We created 3 areas in this space, but then made it all come together as one. So let's say they all wanted to watch TV. Most of the sofas were able to look at the TV minus the one sofa in the back, but that area was already separated anyway. So this room was really more for conversation and less about making sure that it was so practical for the TV, but it was still an option to have in the background. Clients really wanted a chill space where they could entertain guests, but then also feel comfortable when they are entertaining and not feel so formal. So what we tried to do is really keep it open so that it didn't feel like it was filled with furniture. Because the room was so big, at the back of the room, it was also next to the garden. And our clients really wanted a space to be able to have their coffee in the morning and overlook into the garden. So we wanted to create a different area, but then still coordinate it well with the rest of the room. So we always say coordinate all your furniture. But in this situation, because the room is so big, we can take advantage of the fact that we can bring in something else. So here we brought a pop of blue in just to give that wow factor when you're looking from far away as to what's going on in that space. But we coordinated it by making sure that the coffee tables and the side tables all coordinated in the rest of the room. And the shapes and style of furniture was all in unison. That way, it didn't feel like it was another room. It was just an addition to this beautiful space. And so because there was 3 separate areas in this lounge, we decided to not have a central light or have 3 separate lights because we felt it would feel too full. Instead, what we did was track lighting throughout the whole room to really show its scale. That way, when you walk into the space, from floor to ceiling, everything has been thought of. And one last thing to point out is the rug. So we wanted to make the space feel cozy, but putting one large rug in the center made no sense. It would have just then been too big and you might as well carpet the area. But because these guys like to bring drinks in, they wanted to feel comfortable in this space, we put 3 separate rugs in each of the areas, making sure that they were in the right shape, right size of the furniture. That way, each space felt separate, but then when they wanted to bring everyone together, it was a very open space. Those rugs just defined each area, but it doesn't mean it defines the whole room. By the way, if you would like us to help you build your luxurious home, feel free to contact us for a complimentary discovery call with the first link in the description. The one thing that really takes away the luxury of any home is when it's packed with old ornaments, old books. You really need to declutter and reorganize. And I'm saying this as someone who finds it very hard to throw things away, but I've learned this new method, which is hug it and then donate it. Because at the end of the day, it's actually just paying rent in your home rather than actually being something that uplifts you when you walk in and giving you that luxurious feel. It's not like you have to get rid of everything, but it's how you put everything together. So let's say you have books that you love, but sometimes too many just become an eyesore. How about you keep a few that go with the color scheme of the room and then add an accessory on top? Notice how in this project where we had this bookcase, it's full of accessories, but what we tried to do is add symmetry to it, add the right color scheme, make sure that there's some texture involved. And here you can add your photo frames of your family photos, make sure that the scale is right so that it really fits in the space rather than it getting eaten up. So if you have a look here, we tried to add the symmetry by adding these 2 large white vases, which just brought a balance in, but then still a wow factor. So you enjoy looking at that space. And if you notice, we added books in, but very slyly and sleekly. So that way you actually look forward to opening a book. You don't feel like, oh, I have to dust this again. You actually you enjoy dusting it. So if you can, try out a good spring clean, see if you can donate your things, or even if it has to go into the bin, so be it. Because at the end of the day, if it's not bringing you joy, there's no point having it in there. So another great way to make your home feel luxurious is making sure you really think about flooring. In a lot of homes, we really like to put wooden flooring in most of the bedrooms just because it's much more easier to clean. But to keep that cozy feel, we like to add a rug. So if you can see in this project, what we did was the room was already a great size, but by adding a large rug underneath the bed, and that is really important to get the right size and make sure it really ties in the room together. Previously, the owners had the same size room, but then added in a walk-in and a ensuite. So it made the room a little bit smaller. Our aim was to be smart with the space, making sure that the wooden flooring really made the room still feel big, but then that rug added that coziness to it all. And so if you can see over here, we had a little bit of pattern, and it just elevated that whole room by adding that little bit of art actually on the floor. So sometimes when you're using rugs, when you're using flooring, subtle is great, but if the rest of the room is muted, a little bit of texture, a little bit of design goes a long way. And so if you see this hallway, what we did was we used large marble tiles. When you use a larger tile, it means less joints. This immediately makes this place feel luxurious because your eye is not drawn to all the joints in a space. When they're larger, it makes a room also feel bigger. And the fact that they're light tiles, it really makes a difference in making a space feel bigger. The rest of this house originally had black tiles, and it actually made the space feel smaller, if you can see from the example. So notice how the exact same home looks completely different, not only because of colors, but because of the right spatial planning and the right flooring. Another way to create that luxury feel when you walk into a room is texture. So for us, texture is everything. We like to keep things neutral because we want it to stay timeless. But when you add texture, the same color can have so many different layers to it. Whether the wallpaper being a linen effect, whether the carpet having a chenille sheen to it, just because they're the same tone doesn't mean it will get monotonous and boring. It will actually add that richness, that luxury feel that everybody is always after, but then also feeling comfortable for you to come into. So if you look at our project here, this was our client's study. Originally, they had a dark wooden table in the center of the room, which meant only one person could sit in there. Here, because we used a wall-hung unit, in order to create that still dark feel, that study-esque feel, we used a textured wooden wall paneling on the back wall, but then the floating desk remained neutral. That way it felt very much texture-based, but then also very comfortable and neutral and light in that room. This was probably one of the smallest rooms they had in their home, but we still managed to make sure that there was storage in the drawers and storage underneath, and then also a wardrobe on the other side of the room. But by being able to put 2 people in here comfortably opposed to just one, this room became so impactful for the family to be able, for the kids to be able to study, for the dad to be able to do his office work, and same goes for the mom. Adding that layering just added a bit of wow factor when you walk in, but it didn't take over the room. What we tried to do is bring a little bit more pop of color in the chairs so that it was a bit more of a playful room, but generally everything else remained neutral but with texture. Even the blinds had that sheen, that satin sheen on it. So the last point we feel that really adds luxury is technology in your home. Whether it's the electric blinds or the Alexa that allows all the lights in the house to go on and off. Imagine lying in bed and you're wanting to open your blinds, but you just can't be bothered. With a press of a button, up goes your blinds, opens your curtains. You feel like you're in a hotel. And for that little bit more that you stretch, you actually get this for a lifelong experience because they're that effective and that good. Some homes can be in the construction side, and so you can get all the electrics done beforehand. Or if your house is already made, you can just get battery operated curtains and blinds, which means you have to charge it every few months. But for me, this is something that we do for a lot of our clients' homes, including my own, and it makes the world of a difference. The underfloor heating is even greater. I just say to my Alexa, set thermostat to 26 degrees, switch thermostat off, and it is a game changer. That way you actually are saving money because you can switch your heating off completely when you're not in that room. Another great technology hack that we find very luxurious is when you can buy the TV flat screens, which can become artwork when your TV isn't on. That way the space feels very cool, very trendy, very hip, and very luxurious. And that way, when no TV is on and you're entertaining, you just have a beautiful art piece in the background. A lot of homes that are already made, it's very hard to do the electrics. So there are these great smart sockets which allow you to plug in your floor lamps, your table lamps, you name it. And it means that from outside your home or in your home, you can just say, hey Google, hey Alexa, turn on office light, turn on floor lamp in that room. And it feels so good when you walk in, and it's great when you're also entertaining your friends and you see all these things come on, even with the timer. So those are our points on how to make your home feel luxurious. Let us know what you want to implement in your home to make it feel more luxurious.